Yeah, it's spinning.
Welcome to the tactics talk for Norwich away. Sam, it's been a while. It feels like it's been a while, but we just beat Southampton 4-1. Now we were in a midweek game versus Norwich, another tough match. What's your kind of take on this game before we do get into the team? Because what the high scoring team in this league at the moment, I'm going to say it's going to be a tougher game than Southampton, in my opinion. So what is your kind of take on this game then?
I do think it's going to be a tough one for us. Obviously, it's our first real fixture back to back, midweek and weekend fixture in the Championship. So this is where tactics, well, maybe not tactics, but positions and players do need to get changed around, because obviously to keep fitness, because it's not just that we play Norwich tomorrow night. We also have to then go and face Bristol at home. So that's, excuse me, that's 3 games in a week. Excuse me, sorry. So it's a tough run of games, and obviously we've faced Southampton, who did just lose 5-0 to Sunderland, and we've obviously given them quite a good thumping as well. So there's no reason we can't continue our good form, but it's not going to be easy going to Norwich. Like you say, they're the highest goal scored, and obviously I think when you look at our defence, I don't think we're going to keep a clean sheet, because we're not very... I think the defence probably is the weak part, and obviously Cody is coming in and around the team. So I think against Norwich, I do think you're going to see some changes in the back line, especially in the back 3, 4, 5.
Yeah, completely agree. I don't think there's much more to say about it. I'd say the highest scoring team in the league at the moment, from what I've seen. Top 6, if I'm not mistaken. So it's going to be a tough game. And like I say, I thought Southampton was going to be tough. And I wouldn't say breeze past them, but we did well to beat them. So we'll get straight into the team news now. What we think they'll be anyway. And we'll just get stuck into it. So Sam, I think we both are going to agree who the keeper is.
Yeah, Danny Ward, obviously, in goal. No, obviously, Hermansen, he's going to go into goal as solid against Southampton. I didn't manage to catch the match, but I have watched the extended highlights. He seemed pretty solid, finding his feet a little bit better. Obviously, there was a couple of times defence was a bit shaky, and they had the counter-attack, and he obviously was pretty solid with the ball, did some good clearances, some good saves, some good possession-based football at the back. So, yeah, for me, Hermansen, again, I think 6 games in, he's definitely finding his feet, and he is the new number 1. I know he's number 30, but he is the new number 1 for us.
Yeah, I agree. We'll just move straight on from there, because we both agree on that. Centre-backs then, because I'll go first, because I'm going to be a bit different on this now.
So you are. I think we're going to have the same defence.
I'm going to go in the middle. I'm going to go Vestergaard. I don't know if that's the same as you, but I don't see why he needs to be dropped. He's done well. I think he's probably been our best centre-back out of the 3 that played majority of the games. Yes, he might be a bit slow, but I think other than that, I think he's done well to earn his place. I think left centre-back, I don't know. I'm gonna go Faze. I know it's not his side, but I want someone else playing. And in here, I'm gonna put Justin, because I think he did insanely well against Southampton. I thought he was probably the best defensive player we had in that role. Yes, he's got more pace. Yes, he's not out and out centre back, but when he plays into that more of the DM role, sorry, not the DM role, sorry, more of a defensive role, when it comes back to a back 4, when we're getting countered, he's obviously perfect for that kind of right back or left back role. So for me, he does fit into that team, and I think I've got to say Doyle probably deserves a drop after the performance.
Well, it's difficult, because obviously we've got a lot of defensive players now, and when you see Justin, he's in there. What position does he actually fit into? Because he's not just going to be an out-and-out centre-back and right back. It's one of those things where the defence, and credit to Enzo, it's working somewhat moderately well so far. But if you ask me, I think I'm going to go a little bit differently. Because like you said, Norwich they've scored the most goals in the season. Mm-hmm. So for me, I agree with the middle centre-back. I think Vestergaard is solidly... He deserves his place again. I think he's played well. I don't think he should be dropped. I think he's done enough to be the main person there. For me, where it gets a little bit different, and I think this is just my opinion, Again, this is what I'd like to see. Justin, obviously, he came back from injury, and he played quite a good amount against Southampton, and he was pretty solid. But again, he's one of those players where he's one bad tackle. When we saw Southampton got a red card in the last minute, he's one bad tackle away from having. Just for being out long term again. So I don't think I would want to see him, in the team for me. From the start, maybe as a substitute appearance. Like I said, we've got a couple matches coming up. So for me, my next player would be, I think I'm going to have to go in the right centre-back role. Again, if it's not really broken, don't change it. I'm going to put Pies in the right centre-back role. As I think he's been fairly solid. He looks comfortable, he's fit, he's ready to play. Again, you don't want to play players too out of position. For me, my left centre-back role is a different one. I'm still thinking off the top of my head. Obviously, Doyle, he's looked pretty solid, but against Southampton, a couple of mistakes, and one of them did lead to the goal. So for me, I would ease Cody back in. I'm going to put Connor Cody back at left back, the left centre-back role. And I know he's coming back from fitness, but I think you need that leader and a solid head amongst the back, the back line, especially when against a team like Norwich who have scored the most goals so far in the Championship. For me, that's how I would line up, having, more of a captain role, I guess what you would say. And I know that he's fit. And again, I'm not saying he plays the full match, but I do think against Norwich we need a solid start and we need to not concede.
Yeah, Scott does say here he doesn't agree with the formation of a start as well. If you don't agree, then you don't agree with Enzo, because this is how he's going to set up.
Yeah, this is the way we've been playing the whole season. So.
Like Gav says, and Enzo we trust, and we have to, I guess, because that's all we can do.
It's how we've been playing all season.
Yeah.
Won 6 out of 7 so far.
Obviously, guys, make sure to comment who you want to be starting in the Norwich game, and obviously going forward in the next tactics talks we do. But obviously, Sam, we're going into the midfield now, which is always a big talking point. Obviously, we do know there's certain names that we have to be starting because they are key players. But on the winger spots, there's always controversy on Mabadidi, McAteer, Marcel, Atgun, Fatawu. There's so many to talk about.
And I think we're both going to go for the same ones this time.
Okay. So we'll move into the DM roles, because I think we're both going to agree who the players are going to be in these two roles. But we'll start with your centre-defensive mids. Who are you going for?
I think it's clear as day who you're putting in there. Obviously, Harry Winks, the left central mid. Great at holding the ball again. He had a great game against Southampton. He was very creative, that player that held the ball well, created the space, and he again walks into the team. He's been brought in to do what he's done, and he's doing it exactly the way we'd all hope he could, and he has been. So he gets in the team again. And, Pereira, again, the other option, the right back / defensive, whatever player he is now these days, God knows, I don't even know what you'd class him as position. He's just very diverse in his style of football, which is great to see. So, again, he's in the team again. You can't complain. I'd say he deserves to be in that team. And I think you're going to agree that's the right option for the central mid.
Yeah, I might as well just write them in now. There's no point even talking much about them, because I think most weeks now going forward, we're going to be putting these two players in the same role, unless somebody gets injured, which I hopefully doubt. Hopefully not with Ricardo.
When you look at your side, Pereira and Justin, they're both very, I think a lot of us, myself included, do have in the back of the mind one slip in the rainy weather or one bad tackle against Pereira or Justin's going to knock them for 2 and send them back out for another 9, 10, 11, 12 months.
Maybe, but I think I've got to say that I just hope they do keep fit, because someone like Pereira, he is key in that role. I think he's probably one of our best players now for this sort of style we're playing, because we know he's a technical player. We know he can pass on the ball.
He's held himself good in the first, how many games played now? 7?
7, yes.
7. The first 7 games
as well,
he has played well in the opening games, and he's looked solid. But again, like you say, Reedy, if he was to get injured, who does fit as well? Because we know we've got the likes of Chowdhury, Pratt when he comes back from injury himself. A few more players, some of the youngsters in there that could fill the role. But again, that's banking on players like Chowdhury. You never know how he's going to do. Again, Chowdhury definitely wouldn't be able to fill Pereira's.
Then again, you're saying about Pereira, but he is more of that fullback / going into the inside role.
Yeah.
Whereas that could, honestly, in my opinion, could be someone like JJ. Yes, both of them are injury prone, but if Ricardo gets injured, maybe he could slot in that role, because defensively they do have to come back into the right back role.
There is a lot of options, and like I said, we don't know who plays in the good style, because Diddy again has been in the team, and again he played pretty well against Southampton as an attacking midfielder.
Yeah, I agree. We'll move into more of the attacking positions now, Sam. Again, make sure you comment who you want in this game, into the Norwich game. And get your views like always. I'll go into mine first. The midfield role. I'll go from the middle again. We'll go for the wingers last, because there's so many to pick from. I'm gonna go into the central role, and obviously we'll mention that Cannon is injured. And we've heard recently, like today, that he's got a back injury or a back something that
which he had before we signed him.
Which means he will not be starting anytime soon. So, as much as I want to put Kell in that role, it's not going to happen unless we do play Vardy and then Kell behind him. But it's not going to happen. We were dreaming last week, I think, but it's just not going to happen. So, for me, I'm going to put Cassidy in again. I think if we've brought him for a reason, he's got to come in. And in my opinion, I just don't see why Dewsbury is getting starts at the moment. Yes, he had a good pass to McAteer to get a goal against Southampton, but I just don't think he's been proving what he can be the last few weeks. I'm guessing you're going to disagree.
I disagree heavily. I think he's a scapegoat this season.
Maybe.
I think that he'll do one bad thing and get matched, and people will say he's the worst player on the pitch. I actually think he's probably been in the team of the season so far for the whole of the championship. If I'm being honest with you, I think if you look at the way he plays, he puts in the same performances week in, week out. And yeah, he does a few bad passes, but again, every player at some point in a match will do something that wasn't the right thing. But I think, as like we said, Vestergaard really, past couple of seasons, when he did something wrong, he was the scapegoat. When he came on and we conceded, or he came on and he didn't.
No, I completely agree. I completely agree.
And I think that's kind of happening with Dewsbury. When something goes wrong, people look towards someone to blame. And this season, it just happens to be Dewsbury, even though I think everyone's pretty wrong with it. And I do heavily disagree that he hasn't been a good player. I definitely think he should be one of the first names on the team sheet, if I'm being honest with you.
Okay, well, that again, that's opinions, isn't it? So, again, make sure you put your comments and see what your thoughts on Dewsbury is. Because, again, in my opinion, I just feel like he needs to drop just to give a bit of a reality check, because I don't think he has been amazing. Yes, his play on the ball is brilliant. And like I say, he gives the passion, doesn't he?
I think he just has a football brain. For me, Cassidy just sprints up. He's a young lad who just sprints up the pitch and looks for the ball in the box and to shoot. For me, Dewsbury always sits back. He looks to open the spaces up. He's calm on it. We saw the pass to McAteer he did to set up one of the goals against Southampton. Again, that for me, if that was Cassidy, I don't think he has the football brain to look for that. I think he'll sprint for 10, 15, 20 yards and maybe look for a different option, which Dewsbury always quick to offload it and find the best option. Again, I think that just comes from Dewsbury's had the experience in and around championship sides, like I said, at Luton in the previous years and obviously last season in the Premier League. I think he knows how to keep calm and, respect the way to play the football. And I just think that, for me, if we drop someone like Dewsbury against Norwich, I do think we're going to massively miss someone that's calm in the midfield and knows how to create the space without even really thinking about it.
Yeah, I probably do agree with you in some aspects. And I will continue with my team now and put my other midfielder in. It's going to be Ndidi, as much as I hate to admit it, because every time I slate him, he just does something good and proves to be why he's probably in that role now. But I'm going to put him in there. I think, like I say, I do think Dewsbury needs a drop. I do get that he is the passion and he is the fighter in the team, I guess. But I think maybe one game off will maybe help him. I don't know, but get even better,
Don't get me wrong, I could see, obviously, you've got Cassidy, and I'm not saying he's a bad player. I'm saying that there is obviously a lot of options in and around the team. Like I said, it's a midweek match after just playing, and Bristol at the weekend. I will think there'll be some changes. This is the team I'd like to see, personally, just because they are professional footballers. And I think as a professional footballer, they can manage these amount of games and fitness because it's their job. I mean, if I got paid 80 grand a week to kick a ball a couple of times a week, I know it's more than that, but I'm more than happy to do that. So for me, this is a team I would like to see. I think, I'd keep Dewsbury all in there. I think he's the fitness, he's got the legs to stay in the team. And again, like I was saying to you earlier, I do think he has been one of the better players, not just for us, but in the Championship overall. I think he's kind of gone under a little bit from Leicester fans. I think we've kind of scapegoated him a little bit, used him as the reason as to some of the performances and some of the goals, which, again, when you look at it, it's one of those things. Sometimes when stuff doesn't go away, yeah, and I agree with that Facebook user, obviously.
I do get it, and I do see the reason why he would start.
I just think if it's not broke, don't fix it. We played Friday night and it's Wednesday night. That's a 5-day rest period.
I'm not saying, but I'm not even saying it's because of the rest period. I'm just saying that I don't know. At times, I think he just.
If you ask me, when I see Cassidy play, I don't think he offers as much as Dewsbury does, and I think that's purely down to lack of experience. Okay. I think when you see Dewsbury on the pitch, he does know how to create the space and look to be the man to get the ball. Whereas I said Cassidy, I think he's one of those young, hot-headed players who does want to get into the box. There's nothing wrong with that if you need him as a last option for 30 minutes. But I'm just saying to control the majority of the match, I think Dewsbury is the better option.
Yeah, and then obviously going into your midfielder then, Sam.
It's a weird one. I don't really know who to pick. And he had a pretty decent game against Southampton. Obviously got himself a goal. And I think he has been fairly solid. So I guess I'm going to have to pick Ndidi. There's nothing wrong with him. It's probably just my mindset. It's weird to see someone who's a defensive midfielder in an attacking midfielder role. But he's holding his own up there. And again, I think he's one of those confidence players where the more he does in that position, the better he plays, the better he will get as a central attacking midfielder. And again, a good win and a good goal against Southampton on Friday night probably is going to help. So again, I'd give him the first half at least. Again, a lot of these players with the 5 substitutions now you can make, I think we'll see a few different players come off at half-time, maybe if stuff's not working or if players are tired, or even if it's, we're 3-0 up at half-time, it's okay, give the players a rest now because we've got Bristol. This game's done and dusted. But I do think Ndidi goes into first team. Again, you've got to think, when we look at these teams, Winks, Cody, I know Cody's been out injured, even Vestergaard, Fies, Dewsbury, and Ndidi, a lot of these players that are in the team are Premier League players that know how to play a couple games a week. We've seen Ndidi and Pereira, they played Europa League, Champions League, and FA Cups and Carabao Cups, where they were playing 2-3 games in a week. It's one of those things where they have the endurance and the experience to be able to manage it. And I think with that kind of experience, Norwich played as well at the weekend, where for me that's where we do really hold our own, and these players should show their fitness a little bit more because they have played in these types of experiences, having to face multiple matches in a week.
Yeah, I completely agree. We'll move into the attackers now. Striker and 2 wingers. Obviously, against Southampton, we saw Vardy come back into the fold. Do you still see that happening in this game? Obviously, it was a bit of a different start because we knew that Southampton were going to come on us on the counter-attack, so we needed a bit more pace in behind. But I'm not too sure Vardy does fit that style still.
Again, I think Vardy, obviously, I think that was one of his first, I don't know how many appearances he started from this season. I think it's one of his first, or if not second, start to the season. I think it's mostly been Iheanacho. But to me, I think it does show the threat that Vardy offers when we do play that style a little bit. It's like suited more. We did the high press. Southampton probably weren't expecting it, and we got the ball and we did a quick counter from the high press, and Vardy's there took it away from a nice shot. So for me, I still think Vardy is one of the better players to have in a Championship side, and I do think he's just going to take sometimes, put the ball in the net and be a bit more of a confidence player. Like, we've seen with a few players, but for me, I still think Vardy should be in the team. And no offense to Iheanacho, I don't think I've actually seen him do too much in the past 5 years. I thought when he was sticking around that he might actually be a pretty solid player. But if I'm being honest with you, I don't think I've seen him do enough to really earn his place for Norwich when I saw Vardy do quite a lot, to be fair, against Southampton. So for me, I would put Vardy up front again.
Okay.
And not necessarily for the full 90 minutes, because I know that's pretty much how much he played against Southampton. And nothing against Iheanacho. I still think he's a solid player in that. But I do think when, you've got a bit of competition in that position, when you've got the likes of Vardy and Iheanacho there, the player that is playing better should start. And for me, Vardy had a better game against Southampton. For me, that's why I think he deserves to be in the team.
Yeah, I'm going to go to my wingers first, just because I'm not going to pick the same one as you. I might as well just put him in then. Kelechi Iheanacho. I just don't think. I don't think Vardy suits style, and I do like how Kel drops back.
He did score though. That was my issue. He scored, and he does play like he does hold the ball up. So for me, I don't. Again, nothing wrong with Iheanacho, but I do think Vardy is a very good holding player, and I do think he just needs to be utilised more. There's nothing wrong with that. We've seen him hold the ball and pass it well. I think if you just play a bit more to his style in a couple attacks, you get a massive goal threat of someone who's done a lot.
I think the main thing is for me, I just don't know if I trust Vardy to score anymore. Obviously, he did, because it was a pretty much open goal for him.
More than
but what I'm saying is, I don't know. Maybe his age is putting me off of. Every time he's been on goal the last few months, he's just not done anything great.
Don't get me wrong, he has been maybe inconsistent, but strikers need a bit of consistency to be in the team. For me, Iheanacho's had 4 or 5 games on the bounce and he hasn't done enough. So I think that's why you saw Vardy against Southampton. And when he scored the goal, I think that, for me, is instantly firming himself in the team again for the next match. And like I said, when you've got the rotation players, you play the best striker. Iheanacho, he had his 4 or 5 games in a row, and for being honest with you, I don't think he did enough. I think we saw the goals come from the wingers, and I don't think that was due to the style of football playing. I think that was just due to, the quality maybe from himself. He didn't get the best chances to show himself, but he did have enough chances to, hit it on target, at least get it in the net. And for me, you saw Vardy, he had one chance 20 seconds into the match against Southampton, and he put it away. For me, that's enough to at least get him in the Southampton side. And nothing wrong with Iheanacho. It's just, for me, I would like to see a little bit more swapping it up. And like I said, Iheanacho had the previous 4 or 5 games, didn't do enough for me. So that's why I swap it to Vardy again. If Cannon was fit, I'm sure we would see him in the mix of those 3 players as well. But he is not at the moment. It's just Iheanacho and Vardy. But for me, he did enough against Southampton to stick himself in the team again.
Yeah, what I will say is if Vardy does score against Norwich this weekend, if he does start, then I will change it over next week to putting Vardy up front, because, again, I get you mean Vardy does do well with holding the ball up, and he did score. I'm not too confident on his scoring ability at the moment, as much as he did score last week. But we'll move to my wingers now. I think there's only one man to even put in here, and I don't think there's any other man. Yeah, Mavididi. He deserves it. He's been probably one of our best players, in my opinion. He's been not direct, that attackive, so I think he deserves to be in there. When we play Hull and he didn't start, you could see it was a completely different team. It just didn't work.
Against Hull, I think that was one of the reasons why we lost, because we had the wrong lineup. We put Atgun and McAtee, put McAtee on the wrong side for one, and you put Atgun in, who for me didn't really impress. And Mavididi, again, I think is one of those players which I've seen people give stick, say he's not that good. Again, for me, I don't know what football matches they're watching, because I think Mavididi has been one of the best players this season for us. Again, he got man of the match, I believe, against Southampton. Got a good assist. I believe one of the assists didn't count in the end because it came off for Southampton play, but that was from himself sliding into the box nicely. And yeah, really one of the solid players in our team.
Yeah, and then I'm going to say on the other side before you start is Fatawu. There's something about McAtee. I'm not too sure he's ready yet. I'm not sure you're the one that just told me about that, but I just don't know if he's the quality we need yet, in my opinion.
Okay, I disagree.
Okay,
like
fine.
Jake just said, he off screen scored 3 goals. For me, McAtee, again, he walks into the team. I think he's one of the more common players in and around the club.
Okay.
I know he's a youth player, but when we see he scored 2 goals against Rotherham on the right side, then he gets put to the left side, doesn't do anything because that's not his position. He's put back on the right side the next match, and he scores again. For me, if he was playing on the right side against Hull, I think you would have seen him actually do something. I think he might have even scored a goal if he was on his preferred side. So for me, McAtee, I would almost consider it 3 goals in 2 games rather than 3 goals in 3 games, because he was on the wrong side against Hull.
Maybe I get it.
Right winger again. I just think he's a solid option. We brought in all these lone players. That doesn't mean we have to play them. But, we have a contract clause for players like Agden, where if he plays 25 games, we have to sign him. If McAtee's doing as well as he is, which I'd say he is doing pretty well, there's no reason to drop him.
Liam disagrees with me. Shocking take, apparently. Gav says, good point as well. I do see that he does score goals, but I just think we need for me, we need the attacking threat, and someone like Fatu has shown it already. Yes, I could say McAteer has shown that as well, but regarding pace and just everything
it might
regarding that, I just think if he gets more game time, I think he will score more.
It might be Fatu's chance to, first team appearance, see what he can do. Because again, like I say, it's a midweek appearance. But for me, these players are going to be hungry, especially McAteer. He's going to be one of those that is probably not fussed about playing matches of football. So he just needs to play it.
I'm guessing he's going to be in here.
Yeah.
There you go. There's your first one, and the other one is.
My other one is Mavididi again. He's looked pretty solid and can hold his own up there. Like I said, I think that for me it's looking pretty much as the consistent team. I know we've got to play a few matches here and there, like you say, a Wednesday match. But again, if it is 5 days after we played Southampton, I do think a lot of those players will be ready to go again. And for me, I would stick to a strong team, the team that beat Southampton 4. And in my eyes, I can't really judge as much as the whole 90 minutes like you. I mean, I know not you because you missed 25 minutes because of your bus. But from the matches from the highlights I saw, like I said, I watched the extended highlights. We looked fairly solid going attack. And for me, that's the most comfortable we've looked all season. A 4-1 win away to Southampton, who, in all honesty, they had a blip against Sunderland. They've actually been doing pretty well besides that. And again, they had a stinker against us, so some questions to be asked on their half. But I do think even after they lost 5-0, it was hard to go and beat them, let alone beat them 4-1. So I do think the team barely has to change. For me, the only one that changes would be Doyle in for Cody, just to get that experience in the backline. And for me, the only reason would be because Norwich have scored the most goals. And I think if you make your mistakes a bit more against a team like Norwich, who know how to put the ball in the net, they're going to capitalise more than Southampton did.
Yeah, like you can see, he's here both for our teams for the Norwich game tomorrow night. Like I say, the only thing I probably would change is maybe having Faze on the other side, just because he's probably more suited to that role, and JJ can play more on the left wing, left wing back role. So that's probably how I'd face it actually. But yeah, obviously there are two teams. Make sure to get your comments and views in, because you might not agree, you might agree. So let us know what your thoughts are. Yeah, Sam, any last comments on the game or any score predictions before we do?
I think I'll do a few comments and score predictions. Again, like I said, the team I've gone for is what I'd like to see. No, again, they don't have to play the full 90 minutes. Obviously, you get 5 substitutions. So any player that comes into the team, they don't have to stay. They say if they're not having a great first half, they can just come off. And I think we've got a very good team now where you picked Fatu. I think he looks like a pretty solid player. But for me, if he starts against Norwich and doesn't have a great first 45 minutes, you've got so many options like Atgun, McAteer to come on and do something in the second half. Same on the left side, same in the midfield, same in the defence now, I think. And I think apart from Cannon being injured, you'd almost argue the same in the strike force. Obviously, we know Iheanacho and Vardy both can be a bit inconsistent at times, but confidence players. And for me, Vardy does go up front. But I do think we're going to see quite a few changes potentially, because if you ask me, would you rather, have a fully fit team against Norwich or a fully fit team against Bristol?
Norwich.
Well, would you though? Would you not rather just properly go for the Bristol game?
No, I think if anything, you'd make sure you have a full fit team versus Norwich tomorrow, and then if you have to weaken it, then you do weaken it for Bristol. In my opinion, I think maybe in my eyes, you'd probably put someone like Cody in that sort of game against Bristol because it's not as intense, not as not a harder game. I think that's where I think I would start Cody going into that Bristol game. Bit of a lighter game for him, and again maybe drop a few players ready for that Liverpool game in next week.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough. I'll just pull up Scott's comment there. Do you think Ricardo Winks could potentially get some rest points for now to international break? I'm not sure what you mean. Does he mean by resting?
As in, he means they're not gonna keep playing every single game. Where that's why I just said someone like Bristol. I think if you can get past the Norwich game and win that, in my opinion, you could maybe weaken that side a bit so they give a bit of a break.
For me personally, I don't think it matters. I wouldn't drop the better players just because you want to rest them. in my eyes, they're professional footballers, but they're fit enough, they're young enough, they get paid enough to be playing as many games as the schedule allows. The schedule obviously does take into consideration fitness of players and well-being of the players, so they're not going to drain them mentally or physically. They know that the gaps between matches is acceptable enough. Obviously, a 5-day period between Southampton to Norwich, I think that's more than acceptable to play the exact same team and have the as best fitness as possible. And then Bristol, for me, is that where you do end up switching it up a little bit more, because that match is a 3-day difference, and obviously
that's what I'm saying. Home. That's what I'm saying. Someone like Ricardo Winks maybe could be the ones to be a bit of a rest.
They've had the experience in the Premier League, in and around clubs that have played multiple matches weekly. I don't think you'd need to, and I don't think they'd want to. If Winks, I could see consistently playing every single match.
I agree.
We saw it with Castagna last season, albeit he wasn't the best, but he was fit and he played 40-plus matches for us. And that's ultimately probably what got him the move, is he knows how to stay fit and play 40 matches okay-ish in the Premier League. For me, Pereira, again, he's a little bit injury-prone, so it's difficult to judge. Would you want to play him week in, week out? Maybe. He's technically been a captain quite a lot. Obviously, if Vardy's in the team, it's not him. But for me, if you've got someone who's captain, I don't think he should be dropped. And like I said, I may have different opinions to people, but I do think that if you're a professional footballer, you should be able to be fit enough to play 2-3 matches a week.
Yeah, I agree. Make sure, again, guys, put your comments in if you want to change our teams in any way, or put your views on who you'd want to start tomorrow, or obviously going into the Bristol City game. So let us know, and we'll obviously get your views up for the next Tactics Talk. Probably, I don't know, because I'm not here. So you might have to do one with someone else on Thursday or Friday for the Bristol game. Thanks for coming on, guys. We'll catch you on the next show. And make sure to subscribe to Leicester Fan TV. See you in a bit.